Chapter 21-24. The roar of battle echoed through Marineford as the clash between Whitebeard's forces and the Marines raged on. The sky seemed to crack under the immense power radiating from the combatants below. Whitebeard's fleet had made their entrance, and chaos erupted as both sides engaged in a deadly struggle for dominance. Rimuru and Ultima sat in their positions, watching the mayhem unfold around them. Marines and pirates clashed fiercely, but neither of the two seemed in any hurry to move. Their focus was on one thing: Whitebeard. "Looks like it's starting," Rimuru said, his eyes narrowing as he spotted Whitebeard on the battlefield. The legendary pirate towered over his surroundings, every step shaking the ground beneath him. Ultima leaned forward in her seat, her grin widening. "Finally. I was getting bored just sitting here. He's a big one, huh? You think he'll put up a good fight?" Rimuru smirked. He didn't earn the title of the strongest man in the world for nothing. "But we're not here to admire him. We're here to take him down." The clash between Whitebeard's forces and the Marines intensified. Explosions lit up the sky, and the earth trembled with the force of the attacks. Pirates charged forward, trying to break through the Marine defenses, while the Marines retaliated with all their might. But amidst the chaos, Whitebeard stood calm, observing the battlefield as if calculating every move. Ultima stretched lazily and stood up. "All right, I'm done waiting. Let's have some fun." Rimuru nodded in agreement. "Yeah, it's time to make our move." Without another word, the two Shichibukai descended from their perch and stepped onto the battlefield. The moment their feet touched the ground, it was as if a wave of pressure rolled over the nearby combatants. Pirates and Marines alike froze for a brief moment, their attention drawn to Rimuru and Ultima. The sheer aura they exuded was enough to make weaker fighters tremble. "Is that Rimuru, Tempest and Ultima?" a Marine whispered, his face pale with fear. "They're Shichibukai, aren't they? What are they doing here?" Another pirate muttered, stepping back cautiously. Ultima cracked her knuckles, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Let's see how many we can crush before we get to Whitebeard." With that, she vanished from her spot, moving at a speed that left only a blur in her wake. In the blink of an eye, she appeared in front of a group of pirates, her fist already swinging. The moment her fist connected with the nearest pirate, there was a loud crack, and his body was sent flying across the battlefield, smashing through several others in the process. "One down," Ultima said, chuckling. Rimuru followed suit, his movements equally swift. He didn't even bother drawing his sword, his fists were more than enough to deal with the enemies in his path. As pirates charged at him, he weaved through their attacks with ease, landing devastating blows that knocked them unconscious or worse. Each strike was calculated, each movement precise. Rimuru wasn't just fighting, he was dismantling his opponents. "They're like insects," Rimuru commented, sidestepping a clumsy attack from a pirate before delivering a powerful punch to the man's stomach. The pirate crumpled to the ground, gasping for breath. "Insects against lions," Ultima added, her voice full of amusement. She twisted midair, delivering a devastating kick to another pirate's head, sending him crashing into the ground. As they continued cutting down anyone in their path, they kept their eyes on the true prize, Whitebeard. He was still at the center of the battlefield, and though the pirates around him were trying to push forward, Rimuru and Ultima were making their way toward him, leaving a trail of bodies in their wake. But before they could get much further, two powerful figures appeared in front of them, blocking their path. It was Jozu, the commander of the 3rd Division of the Whitebeard Pirates, and Marco, the 1st Division commander. "That's far enough," Marco said, his usual calm demeanor still present, but there was an edge to his voice. Jozu stood tall beside him, his body shimmering with the power of his devil fruit, which gave him the ability to turn his body into diamond. "You're not getting any closer to Whitebeard." Ultima smirked, her eyes locking onto Marco. "Looks like we've got some real opponents this time. Finally, someone worth fighting." Rimuru cracked his neck, loosening up. "Marco the Phoenix and Jozu the Diamond. I've been looking forward to this." Marco didn't waste time responding. In an instant, his body was enveloped in blue flames as he transformed into his full phoenix form. He soared into the air, coming down with a swift kick aimed at Ultima's head. But Ultima, with her advanced observation haki, anticipated the attack easily. She dodged to the side, her arm already coated in advanced armament haki as she countered with a punch aimed at Marco's midsection. Marco barely managed to block the blow, but the force behind it sent him skidding backward across the battlefield. He grimaced, feeling the power behind Ultima's strike. "She's fast and strong," he muttered to himself. Meanwhile, Jozu charged at Rimuru, his entire body turning into diamond as he aimed to crush Rimuru with a powerful punch. Rimuru, however, remained calm. He activated his own advanced armament haki, his hand turning pitch black as he caught Josu's fist with ease. Diamond's impressive, Rimuru said, smirking. But it won't be enough. With a sudden burst of strength, Rimuru pushed Josu back, creating some distance between them. Josu growled in frustration and charged again, but this time Rimuru was ready. He sidestepped Josu's attack, landing a swift counter-punch to the side of his ribs. Despite his diamond body, Josu grunted in pain as the advanced haki-infused blow sent shockwaves through his body. You're strong, but not strong enough, Rimuru said coolly. The battle between Ultima and Marco was equally intense. Marco was fast, using his phoenix form to stay mobile and out of reach. But Ultima's observation haki allowed her to keep up with him, and her attacks were relentless. Every time Marco tried to land a hit, Ultima would dodge and counter with devastating punches and kicks, each one infused with advanced armament haki. You're starting to slow down, Marco, Ultima taunted, landing a solid punch to his side that sent him crashing into the ground. Marco stood, wiping blood from the corner of his mouth. His phoenix flames began to heal his injuries, but even with his regeneration, he knew he was at a disadvantage. These two, they're monsters, he thought. Back on the other side of the battlefield, Josu was struggling to keep up with Rimuru's speed and precision. Every attack Josu launched was met with a swift counter, and Rimuru's advanced haki made even his diamond body feel vulnerable. Josu roared in frustration, launching a massive diamond-covered punch at Rimuru, but Rimuru simply sidestepped the attack and delivered a devastating blow to Josu's stomach. The force of the punch sent Josu flying backward, crashing into a group of pirates and leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. As Josu struggled to stand, Rimuru glanced at Ultima, who had just knocked Marco back again. Ready to finish this? Rimuru asked. Ultima grinned. You bet. Without hesitation, Rimuru and Ultima launched simultaneous attacks. Rimuru's fist glowed with the power of his advanced armament haki as he punched Josu with full force, while Ultima delivered a powerful kick to Marco, her leg coated in the same advanced haki. Both Marco and Josu were sent flying across the battlefield, crashing into the ground on the opposite side. As the dust settled, Rimuru and Ultima stood victorious, not even breaking a sweat. Well, that was fun, Ultima said, stretching. But we're not done yet. Rimuru nodded, his eyes fixed on their true target. Let's go. Whitebeard is waiting. With their opponents defeated, Rimuru and Ultima resumed their march toward Whitebeard. The battlefield around them was still in chaos, but nothing would stop them from reaching their goal. As they moved closer, the ground shook once again, and the unmistakable presence of Whitebeard grew stronger. His massive figure loomed in the distance, surrounded by his strongest allies, but Rimuru and Ultima were undeterred. This is it, Rimuru said quietly. We take down Whitebeard, and the world will know our names. Ultima's grin widened. Let's make history. And so, with Whitebeard in their sights, Rimuru and Ultima pressed forward, ready to claim their place as the new rulers of the sea. The war had only just begun, but for them, victory was already within reach. Rimuru and Ultima advanced through the battlefield of Marineford, their presence sending waves of terror through the ranks of Whitebeard's pirates. Every step they took was marked by destruction. Pirates who dared to cross their path were swatted away like insects, their combined haki turning the tide of battle wherever they moved. With each swipe, each blow, the two Shichibukai inched closer to their ultimate goal, the world's strongest man, Whitebeard. How much longer until we reach him? Ultima muttered, her voice laced with impatience as she easily sidestepped an attack from a pirate who immediately collapsed under the weight of her conqueror's haki. Rimuru grinned. Just a bit more. We can already see him. Through the chaos, the towering figure of Edward Newgate, Whitebeard himself, loomed on the horizon. Even from this distance, Rimuru could feel the immense pressure of his presence, a living legend who stood against the world. Pirates rallied around him, forming a protective wall to stop anyone who dared approach. But to Rimuru and Ultima, this was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. Whitebeard, from his position on the front lines, observed the battlefield calmly, his deep eyes taking in everything. He saw them, the two Shichibukai cutting through his men like a hot knife through butter. His frown deepened. Shichibukai, he muttered under his breath, tightening his grip on his massive bisunto. He could sense their strength, feel the ominous aura surrounding them. This wasn't going to be a simple battle. Suddenly, Rimuru stopped in his tracks, his gaze locking with Whitebeard's. The tension in the air thickened as if the very world was holding its breath for the upcoming clash. Ultima, Rimuru said with a smirk, looks like we're finally here. Ultima's eyes gleamed with excitement. It's about time. I've been itching for a real fight. With that, both of them launched forward, their advanced armament, observation, and Conqueror's Haki activated to their fullest potential. The ground beneath them cracked as they propelled themselves toward Whitebeard, a burst of power that sent shockwaves through the battlefield. Whitebeard's commanders, sensing the danger, tried to intervene. But Ultima flicked her wrist, unleashing a wave of Conqueror's Haki so strong that dozens of pirates collapsed instantly, unconscious before they even hit the ground. Whitebeard's brows furrowed. You too, you're strong. Of course, Rimuru replied casually. But let's skip the pleasantries, shall we? We're here for a fight. Without another word, they charged at Whitebeard. The sound of their clash was deafening. Rimuru's fist, wrapped in black Haki, met Whitebeard's Bisinto with an explosive force. Sparks flew, and the ground beneath them shattered under the pressure. Ultima, with a maniacal grin, leapt in from the side, her armament-infused fist hurtling toward Whitebeard's ribs. But Whitebeard, ever the seasoned warrior, anticipated her attack. He twisted his body, deflecting her blow with his Bisinto while simultaneously activating his Tremor fruit. A massive quake erupted from his weapon, sending tremors rippling through the air. The shockwave hit Ultima head-on, but she gritted her teeth, digging her feet into the ground to withstand the force. Her advanced armament Haki shielded her from the worst of it, but the sheer power of Whitebeard's attack was undeniable. You've got some power, old man, Ultima sneered, wiping a trickle of blood from the corner of her mouth. But you'll need more than that to stop me. Whitebeard's eyes narrowed. I've fought stronger people than you, girl. Ultima let out a laugh. We'll see about that. As the battle raged on, Rimuru and Ultima moved with a coordination that could only be forged through years of experience. Rimuru darted forward, aiming a powerful Haki-infused kick at Whitebeard's side. Whitebeard, sensing the attack with his advanced observation Haki, raised his Bisinto just in time to block it. The impact sent another shockwave through the battlefield. The air cracked, and the ground split open, but neither combatant gave an inch. Whitebeard grunted, his muscles straining as he pushed against Rimuru's kick. Meanwhile, Ultima took advantage of the opening, striking from the opposite side with a barrage of armament Haki-imbued punches. Whitebeard spun his Bisinto around in a wide arc, creating a wall of tremors that forced Ultima and Rimuru to retreat momentarily. His movements were slow but deliberate, every swing carrying the weight of his titanic strength. Old man's tougher than I thought, Rimuru remarked, shaking his hands as if to brush off the strain of their clash. He's not the strongest man in the world for nothing, Ultima responded, a wild grin still plastered on her face. Whitebeard stood tall, his chest rising and falling steadily despite the intensity of their exchange. You two are good, but I've faced worse. Rimuru chuckled. Don't underestimate us, Whitebeard. We're not like the others. Whitebeard's eyes sharpened, the faintest hint of a smile tugging at his lips. Then show me what you've got. And with that, the true battle began. Rimuru dashed forward with inhuman speed, his fist cocked back and cloaked in black lightning, the telltale sign of advanced Conqueror's Haki. Whitebeard met his charge head-on, swinging his Bisinto with the full force of his Tremor fruit behind it. When their attacks collided, the world itself seemed to tremble. Ultima, not one to be left out, leapt into the fray, her fists coated in armament Haki as she launched herself at Whitebeard's flank. She threw a barrage of punches, each one more ferocious than the last, but Whitebeard was no amateur. He anticipated her movements with his advanced observation Haki, deflecting her blows with his Bisinto while simultaneously keeping Rimuru at bay. The battlefield around them was in chaos. Marines and pirates alike were thrown off their feet by the sheer force of their clash. The sky above darkened, as if even the heavens were reacting to the monumental power being unleashed below. Rimuru, Ultima called out between punches, her eyes gleaming with excitement. How about we turn it up a notch? Rimuru grinned, sidestepping a quake-infused swing from Whitebeard. I was thinking the same thing. In an instant, both Rimuru and Ultima pushed their Haki to the limit. Their Conqueror's Haki flared up, creating a tangible pressure in the air that forced weaker combatants to their knees. Even Whitebeard grunted under the weight of their combined power. You two, you've got spirit, Whitebeard muttered, his voice filled with respect but also resolve. He clenched his fist, causing the air around it to crackle with the power of his Tremor fruit. But I'm not going down that easily. With a roar, Whitebeard slammed his fist into the ground, sending a massive tremor through the battlefield. The ground erupted in jagged cracks, and buildings crumbled under the force of the quake. Rimuru and Ultima jumped back, narrowly avoiding the destruction. That's some serious power, Rimuru said, impressed. But we're not done yet, Ultima added, her eyes narrowing as she focused on Whitebeard. They launched themselves at Whitebeard once more, their attacks coming faster and harder. Rimuru's advanced armament Haki made his strikes feel like a hammer, while Ultima's speed and precision with observation Haki allowed her to exploit even the smallest of openings. For every blow Whitebeard blocked, 2 more slipped past his defenses. Rimuru's fist connected with Whitebeard's ribs, sending a shockwave rippling through his body. Ultima followed up with a devastating punch to his side, the force of which sent Whitebeard staggering backward. But Whitebeard wasn't finished. With a growl, he unleashed a tremor-infused punch that sent both Rimuru and Ultima flying back several meters. They landed on their feet, skidding to a stop, but the sheer power of the blow left them both winded. "He's strong," Ultima admitted, wiping blood from her mouth. "But so are we," Rimuru responded, his eyes locking onto Whitebeard once more. Whitebeard stood tall, his chest heaving but his eyes still filled with determination. "You too, or something else," he said, his voice tinged with respect. "But if you think you can take me down, you'll have to try harder than that." Rimuru's grin widened. "Oh, don't worry, we plan to." With renewed determination, they charged at Whitebeard once more, the ground shaking beneath their feet as the titanic clash continued. The intense clash between Rimuru, Ultima, and Whitebeard continued to shake the very foundation of Marineford. Each strike carried immense power, sending tremors through the air and ground as the titanic forces collided. Rimuru and Ultima, wielding the full strength of their advanced Haki, fought with a synchronicity that only years of battle together could foster. Their movements were fluid, perfectly timed, as they took turns attacking Whitebeard from different angles. Despite his age and the toll of the war, Whitebeard stood firm. His Bisanto cleaved through the air with devastating might, while the ground beneath him quaked with every tremor he unleashed. "You've lasted longer than I thought, old man," Rimuru taunted, launching a barrage of armament Haki-imbued punches toward Whitebeard. Whitebeard blocked the onslaught with his Bisanto, gritting his teeth as he swung the weapon in a massive arc, sending shockwaves rippling outward. The sheer force of the strike sent both Rimuru and Ultima flying back several meters, but they landed gracefully, ready for the next assault. Ultima wiped a trickle of blood from the corner of her mouth, her lips curling into a wild grin. "He's tough, I'll give him that. But he's slowing down." Rimuru nodded, his sharp gaze fixed on Whitebeard. "He's not the same as he was at the start of this fight. We've pushed him close to his limits." Whitebeard's chest heaved as he caught his breath, sweat dripping down his brow. His once unstoppable strength was beginning to falter, the wear and tear of countless battles evident in the way. His body moved, yet even in this state, his presence was nothing short of overwhelming. Advanced Conqueror's Haki radiated from him in waves, a crushing pressure that brought even the most seasoned warriors to their knees. Marines and pirates alike collapsed, unconscious from the sheer weight of his will. "Shichibukai." Whitebeard's voice was a deep, rumbling growl as he leveled his gaze at Rimuru and Ultima. "You think you can defeat me just because I'm old? You don't understand what true power is." Rimuru's grin widened, his tone mocking. "Old man, you're strong, but this battle's already decided. You just don't know it yet." Whitebeard's eyes narrowed as he gripped his Bisanto tighter, muscles tensing in preparation for the next exchange. "I've heard those words before, from fools who didn't live long enough to regret them." Ultima stepped forward, her fists crackling with the energy of her advanced armament Haki. "You're just another fool to add to that list, old man." And with that, the fight resumed. Rimuru and Ultima attacked from opposite sides, moving like shadows across the battlefield. Their speed was blinding, and their attacks were relentless, combining the brute force of Rimuru's strikes with the precision of Ultima's deadly blows. Whitebeard, though strained, fought back with the same indomitable will that had earned him the title of the world's strongest man. His Bisanto swung with earth-shattering might, and the ground trembled under his feet as he released tremor after tremor from his devil fruit ability. But even Whitebeard, with all his might, couldn't keep pace with the unrelenting duo. Rimuru's fists crashed against Whitebeard's guard with bone-breaking force, each strike reinforced with advanced armament Haki. Ultima's attacks were more tactical, her observation Haki allowing her to exploit the slightest openings in Whitebeard's defense. "He's weakening," Rimuru muttered as he dodged another tremor-infused strike that shattered the ground beneath him. "It's time to finish this." Ultima nodded, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Let's end this old man's reign once and for all." As they prepared for their final assault, a sudden scream from across the battlefield drew their attention. On the execution platform, Ace knelt before his brother, Luffy, who had collapsed from exhaustion. Marines and pirates clashed all around them, but the scene on the platform seemed to freeze in time as Akainu, the fearsome admiral, approached with a fist of molten magma. Rimuru's eyes narrowed. Is he really? Ultima's expression darkened. That bastard Akainu. Before they could react, Akainu unleashed his magma fist toward Luffy. In an act of desperation, Ace threw himself in front of his brother, taking the full force of the attack. The scorching magma burned through Ace's body, the smell of sizzling flesh filling the air as Ace let out a blood-curdling scream of agony. Ace! Luffy's voice cracked as he watched his brother's body collapse in front of him, limp and lifeless. The silence that followed was deafening. Whitebeard, locked in battle with Rimuru and Ultima, froze as he witnessed the scene unfold. His eyes widened, and his heart sank as the realization of Ace's death hit him like a tidal wave. Ace! Whitebeard's voice trembled with anguish, his grip on his bisinto faltering. The battlefield fell into a stunned silence, the air thick with the weight of Ace's death. For the first time in the battle, Whitebeard's resolve wavered. His conqueror's haki flickered, and the mighty legend himself looked defeated. Rimuru's eyes flashed with opportunity. Now, he muttered to Ultima. This is our chance. Ultima's grin turned predatory, her fists glowing with the dark energy of her armament haki. Let's finish this. Without a second's hesitation, Rimuru and Ultima rushed forward, their bodies moving as blurs as they closed the distance between them and Whitebeard. They channeled every ounce of their advanced haki into their next attacks, fists glowing with black energy as they struck Whitebeard with everything they had. Rimuru's punch connected first, slamming into Whitebeard's abdomen with a force that sent shockwaves rippling through the battlefield. Ultima's strike followed, crashing into Whitebeard's ribs with enough power to crack bone. Whitebeard gasped, blood spurting from his mouth as he stumbled back. His knees buckled, and for the first time, the strongest man in the world was brought to his knees. Even then, Whitebeard refused to fall. His defiant gaze locked onto his attackers, his body trembling from the onslaught but his spirit unbroken. You think, this is enough? Whitebeard growled, his voice hoarse but filled with unyielding resolve. I'll never fall, to the likes of you. Ultima sneered. You're already dead. You just don't know it. With a final nod between them, Rimuru and Ultima raised their fists once more. Conqueror's haki flared around them as they delivered the finishing blow, their fists crashing down on Whitebeard's skull with a sickening crunch. Whitebeard's body slumped forward, his bisinto slipping from his grasp as his head rolled to the side. Blood pooled beneath him, and the battlefield was silent as the mighty Whitebeard fell. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Marines and pirates alike stared in stunned disbelief at the lifeless body of the world's strongest man. No one moved, no one spoke. The silence was deafening. Rimuru and Ultima stood over Whitebeard's corpse, their expressions unreadable. They had done it. They had killed the man who had once ruled the seas. Whitebeard is dead, Rimuru said softly, his voice carrying over the battlefield like a chilling wind. Ultima exhaled, wiping the blood from her knuckles. It's over. The era of Whitebeard is over. Slowly, the reality of Whitebeard's death began to sink in across the battlefield. The pirates, who had fought so valiantly for their captain, were overcome with grief. Some dropped their weapons, falling to their knees as tears streamed down their faces. Others screamed in anger and despair, their voices carrying through the chaos. Captain, no, he's gone. Whitebeard is gone. The Marines, on the other hand, stood in stunned silence. The strongest man in the world had fallen, and Marineford had been changed forever. As the battle continued to rage around them, Rimuru and Ultima turned their gaze toward the execution platform, where Luffy wept over Ace's body. Akainu loomed nearby, seemingly unfazed by the death of Whitebeard. Rimuru glanced at Ultima. There's still work to do. Ultima smirked. Shall we clean up the rest? Rimuru shook his head. Not yet. Let them finish. We've already claimed our victory. Together, Rimuru and Ultima turned away from Whitebeard's lifeless form and walked calmly back toward the marine lines. The battle was far from over, but they had already accomplished what they had set out to do. Edward Newgate, Whitebeard, was dead. The chaos of Marineford was still fresh in everyone's minds. The death of Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world, had sent shockwaves throughout the battlefield, leaving both pirates and Marines alike in stunned silence. But amid the confusion and grief, Rimuru and Ultima stood tall, their eyes gleaming with the thrill of victory. They had defeated Whitebeard, and with his death, the balance of power in the world was about to shift. Now was the time to make their move. Rimuru took a step forward, his voice booming across the battlefield, cutting through the sounds of battle and cries of mourning. Marines, pirates, Shichibukai, hear me. His voice commanded attention, and all eyes turned toward him and Ultima. Whitebeard is dead, and with him, his era comes to an end, Rimuru continued, his gaze sweeping across the assembled forces. But the world does not need to mourn his passing for long, for a new era is about to begin. Ultima stood beside him, a wicked grin on her face. She could sense the tension in the air, the uncertainty of both the Marines and the pirates as they tried to comprehend what was happening. I'd like to take a moment, Ultima began, her voice cold and confident, to thank the Marines for making this possible. You've done a splendid job gathering us all here in Marineford. After all, without you, we wouldn't have had the chance to take down the so-called strongest man in the world. She sneered, her words dripping with sarcasm. The Marines, including the admirals, tensed at her words. Sengoku, who had been watching the battle from the execution platform, narrowed his eyes in suspicion. What are they playing at? He muttered. Rimuru's next words sent a ripple of shock through the gathered forces. But now, we have no further need for the title of Shichibukai. Gasps echoed through the battlefield. Even the Shichibukai themselves, Doflamingo, Mihawk, Boa Hancock, and the others, turned their attention to Rimuru and Ultima with a mixture of surprise and confusion. We're done with this title, Ultima added, her voice carrying a deadly edge. We've played your little game long enough, and now it's time for us to claim what we truly deserve. Sengoku's expression darkened as he realized what they were implying. You're planning to. That's right. Rimuru cut him off, his eyes gleaming with ambition. We're taking Whitebeard's place as one of the 4 emperors, the Yonko. The declaration hit Marineford like a tidal wave. The Marines erupted in confusion and alarm, while the pirates stared in shock, unable to believe what they were hearing. Even the other Shichibukai, who had witnessed Rimuru and Ultima's power firsthand, were taken aback. What are they saying? One of the Marine officers stammered. They can't be serious. The Yonko, Doflamingo, always quick to laugh in the face of chaos, let out a manic cackle. Foo. These two, they're truly insane. Mihawk, though silent as always, cast a sharp glance toward Rimuru and Ultima, as if assessing their true intentions. Boa Hancock, who had remained focused on Luffy throughout the battle, looked momentarily distracted by the sudden shift in power dynamics. Sengoku clenched his fists, his patience wearing thin. You think the world will just let you walk in and take Whitebeard's place? The Yonko are not so easily replaced. Ultima's grin widened as she met Sengoku's furious gaze. Oh, we know. That's why we're going to show everyone why we deserve that title. Right here, right now. Without warning, the air around Ultima began to shift. A low rumbling sound echoed across the battlefield, growing louder with each passing second. The ground beneath their feet started to tremble, and the sky itself seemed to darken. What's happening? One of the Marines muttered, panic rising in his voice. Ultima raised her hand, her eyes glowing with power. Let me show you the true meaning of an earthquake. And then it happened. The air cracked with a deafening roar as Ultima unleashed the full force of the Gura no Mi, the tremor fruit, the very same devil fruit that had belonged to Whitebeard. The entire battlefield quaked violently, as if the very world itself was being torn apart by her power. No, it can't be. Sengoku's eyes widened in disbelief. She has Whitebeard's power. The tremors grew more intense, shaking Marineford to its core. Buildings began to crumble, the ground split open, and the sea surged violently, threatening to swallow the island whole. The sheer power of the earthquake was terrifying. Marines and pirates alike struggled to stay on their feet, some falling into the widening cracks in the ground as the earth beneath them fractured and buckled. Run! Marineford is collapsing, a Marine shouted as he tried to flee from the crumbling structures. Admiral Akainu, his face twisted in anger, stepped forward. We can't let them get away with this. We must stop them before they destroy everything. But even Akainu, with all his might, couldn't stop the devastation that Ultima was unleashing. Marineford was crumbling under her power, the island sinking slowly into the sea as the tremors tore it apart. Rimuru stood calmly beside Ultima, unaffected by the destruction surrounding them. See, this is the power of a Yonko. Ultima laughed as she continued to channel the power of the Gura no Mi, relishing the chaos she had created. You wanted a show, right? Well, here it is. Sengoku's mind raced as he tried to comprehend the full extent of what was happening. Marineford was falling apart, and the Marines were powerless to stop it. Even if they defeated the pirates, the entire island would be lost. How did she get that power? Sengoku muttered, his fists clenched tightly. This wasn't part of the plan. Rimuru turned his gaze to the execution platform where Sengoku stood. We're not interested in sticking around for whatever comes next. Marineford is finished. But before we leave, I want to make one thing clear. The ground shook once more as Ultima's power continued to ravage the island, sending waves of panic through the Marines and pirates. We're done with the Shichibukai. From this moment on, we're taking Whitebeard's place as one of the 4 emperors. And if anyone dares to challenge us, they'll meet the same fate as Whitebeard. Ultima smirked as she let the tremors subside for a brief moment, allowing the full weight of Rimuru's words to sink in. The Marines can keep their titles, Ultima said with a sneer. We're done playing by your rules. Sengoku glared at them, his face etched with anger and frustration. You won't get away with this. The world won't accept you as Yonko. Rimuru chuckled. The world doesn't have a choice. We'll make them accept it. With that, Ultima unleashed another powerful tremor, this time even stronger than before. The entire island shook violently, and the sea surged up, flooding parts of Marineford as the ground beneath them cracked and crumbled. We're done here, Rimuru said, turning to Ultima. Let's go. Ultima nodded, her smile fading as she focused on their escape. Right. As the destruction of Marineford reached its peak, Rimuru and Ultima made their way to the nearest Marine ship. The vessel had been left unguarded in the chaos, its crew either dead or too terrified to stop them. They boarded the ship with ease, taking control as the ground behind them continued to collapse into the sea. Set sail, Rimuru ordered, his voice calm despite the carnage around them. The ship's sails unfurled, and the vessel began to move away from Marineford. As they sailed into the distance, they looked back at the island, now sinking beneath the waves, its once proud structures reduced to rubble. Marineford was gone. We did it, Ultima said with a grin, watching as the last remnants of Marineford disappeared beneath the water. Whitebeard is dead, and the Marines won't know what hit them. Rimuru nodded, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Now, the world will know that we're not to be trifled with. We'll show them what it means to be Yonko. As they sailed away, the sounds of the battlefield grew distant, replaced by the rhythmic crashing of the waves. Behind them, Marineford continued to sink, its legacy buried beneath the sea. The era of Whitebeard was over. And a new era, one ruled by Rimuru and Ultima, was about to begin. To be continued.